In true Jerry Maguire fashion, show me the money. Let's talk about some ways the Browns can free up cap space as NFL free agency, believe it or not, is less than a month away. Now, really quick off the top here, on yesterday's video, we picked up 80 new subscribers, so welcome aboard to all the new faces that clicked the sub button. But on today's episode, I'd love to get to 100 subscribers. So if you are looking for a free go-to Cleveland Browns YouTube channel, scroll on down, click that sub button. Now, the Browns do have a little bit of work to do. This is from Over the Cap, and these numbers can be a little fluid, but we'll roll with these numbers for the time being. They are currently $30 million in the red. They have to get below the salary cap before the start of the new league year, which is March 12th. So some work to be done by Andrew Berry and company, but this is his expertise. Drafting, maybe not so much, but when it comes to making money disappear, yes. So the first way you can clear up cap space is by cutting players. This is probably like the most simplistic form, just snip, 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 cut veteran players with expensive contracts and roll the dice with cheaper, younger players. So unfortunately, the way that the Browns' contracts are currently structured, there is no great pre-June 1 release candidate. You could cut some guys that save you $400,000. That's not going to make a dent in $30 million. So here are 5 players that if you release them with a post-June 1 designation or just after June 1st, but remember, you don't get the cap savings until after June 1st. Here are some post-June 1 cut candidates. Jack Conklin, Wyatt Teller, Jedrick Wills, I'll talk about him in a moment, Juan Thornhill, and Okoronkwo. If you're wondering why is Wills on this, he's a free agent. Remember, the Browns restructured his contract. They added a void year onto it. So he's kind of on the books for this year, but he actually won't be on the team this upcoming season. They did the same thing when they brought back Jadeveon Clowney. They actually made him a post-June 1 designation. So these are some guys that you can make post-June 1 cuts, but remember, you don't get any of this money until after June 1st. You can also, by the way, only use 2 post-June 1 release designations. So my prediction is the Browns will use the 2 post-June 1 cuts on Jedrick Wills. This one seems kind of obvious to me. They are not bringing him back, and $8.7 million in cap space. While it won't do you any favors in March when you want to spend that on free agents and whatnot, it's still enough money to go, yep, we're going to use one of our 2 June 1, post-June 1 designations on you. And then I think Juan Thornhill. So this one I go back and forth on a little bit because there's not a ton of cap savings to be had with Thornhill, but also he hasn't produced for you in 2 years. He doesn't really seem all that engaged with the team. He kind of seems checked out, and I just think the Browns are ready to move on from him altogether and have Grant Delpit, Ronnie Hickman, DeAnthony Bell, and a rookie safety as their new safety room. Now, what about Joel Bitonio? This is a unique category because he's not a roster cut, but there is a lot of buzz out there from Joel Bitonio that he is considering retiring. The way retirement works is if the player retires, it's not like their contract just poof disappears. No, it's not David Blaine. It's like he's getting cut. So if they have him or he retires before June 1st, it would go down like he was released before June 1st. So my suspicion is Bitonio will inform the Browns at some point between now and March what his plans are. Maybe he's already done that. And the Browns will say, if you could do us a solid, don't retire until after June 1, because then we can get $8.3 million in cap savings, which it happened last. I think Jason Kelce retired, right? Like over the summer. And he actually still had some years left on his contract, of course. And they had a dead cap hit. Not a huge one, but they did as a result. So if we see the announcement in the middle of June that Bitonio is retiring, the Browns are not going to be blindsided by this. It's probably going to be the Browns requesting wait until June because I don't think you can do a post-June 1 retirement. Maybe not. I don't know. So if you make all these moves, though, the 2 post-June 1 cuts and Joel Bitonio, you get $20.4 million in cap relief. But that comes after June 1st. So you still have some work to do when it comes to creating enough cap space to get below the projected salary cap, which is about $272 million for 2025. Now, speaking of Bitonio, he's going to go down as one of the better Browns players that deserved more. And it's a bummer that he just doesn't walk away with a better, I wouldn't say legacy, but kind of hardware and wins. So name a Browns player that you just feel bad for. Like Joe Thomas, Cleveland Brown for life, and unfortunately never experienced really any success when it comes to the win and loss column. So who's a player that you're like, damn, I wish he could have been on a better Browns team because he deserved that. After making a couple of roster cuts, and like I said, the pre-June 1 cuts, that does give you instant cap relief, but you can kind of go look for yourself. There's not a lot of good options. The next one is contract restructures. This is Andrew Berry's baby. He loves restructuring contracts. Now, I think some people have a little bit of a misconception as to what a restructure is. A contract restructure is not the player doing the team a big, ginormous favor. It is not the player agreeing to take less money. A contract restructure is taking the player's base salary for that year, bringing it down to the minimum, and then that fat you just trimmed off, prorating it over signing bonuses for the remaining years on his contract. You lower his cap hit for this season while raising future cap hits. Why do teams do this? That way they can maximize their spending that season. It's something Howie Roseman has done with the Eagles, and he gave a great example saying it's like you could buy a home or you can buy a home with an interest-free loan. Why spend $1 million today on a home when I can divvy that up over multiple years, but there's no interest on it? So the payments don't go up. In fact, the salary cap always goes up, and that way the percentage cap hit goes down. That is the Browns' thinking when it comes to restructures. The only con to a restructure, not only, but one of, is if you don't have a ring to show for, eventually you got to pay the piper. And that's going to be a tough day when you have a bunch of dead money and a bunch of cap hits, and you don't want to extend the player's contract, so you got to eat it all at once, so you got to add void years onto their deal, and you don't have anything to show for, which is unfortunately what the Browns are kind of currently facing right now. But this might sound like a big homer take. I don't fault the Browns for this thinking because at least they tried. How often do we get mad as sports fans when your ownership doesn't spend money? Especially in baseball, for example. It's like, damn. Once again, bottom 10 in payroll. The Browns are the opposite. They are spending money aggressively. They might not spend on the right players, but I'm not going to be mad at them for at least trying. So here are 3 restructure candidates. These are the top 3 guys when it comes to cap space you could get by restructuring their deal. If you restructure Watson's contract, you get $35.7 million. Conklin's $9.5, but if you restructure his deal, you increase future cap hits, and that makes it a lot more difficult to move on from him before his contract is over with, which I don't think the Browns intend on keeping Conklin for the remaining years of his contract. And then Denzel Ward, you can restructure him. What if he requests a trade? Now all of a sudden you got a big cap hit coming for a guy who's not on your team anymore, the dead money. So these two don't seem all that likely to me. I think Watson will have his contract restructured. And I know that's probably going to set some people ablaze. I don't think it's a bad thing for the Browns to do. They are going to bring that $35 million down. They are going to slap on cap hits in the future. They have already added void years all the way to 2028 or might even be 2030. A long time. And they're basically going to, pardon my French, Bobby Bonilla this bitch. Like, instead of actually paying him cash, he's going to get all the money before 2030. But the cap hits that he is responsible for, he's going to be on the Browns salary cap books for the next 5-6 years. And it's going to be small increments. But with the salary cap always going up, $5 million today is a lot bigger piece of a pie for the salary cap than 3 or 4 years from now. And that's the Browns' overall thinking. So Watson's cap hit of $72.9 million is not going to stand. Like, they are not going to take on a $72.9 million dead cap hit. They are likely going to restructure Watson's deal, and that will lower his cap hit for this year. It also can get them in the green and that means they can have some salary cap rollover, which the Browns are rolling over $40 million this year from last year. That is the second most in the NFL, only behind the 49ers, who kind of did the same thing, which is, be aggressive. And hey, it kind of worked out for them. They went all the way to the Super Bowl. So it wasn't a bad process. They just didn't finish the job, sadly. So I don't get mad at teams for having this line of thinking. Now, if you're a team like the Saints, you probably shouldn't have that line of thinking because you're not good enough to feel like, yeah, we're really close. Let's go all in right now. No, you weren't. I don't know why you thought you were. Now, before we get on to the other ways to free up some cap space, my fiance is out of town for the next week and a half, so I've got the TV to myself. I no longer have to watch Southern Charm when I come home for work. So let me know a movie recommendation. I feel like I got to rewatch Jerry Maguire because it's been a while since I've seen it, but I've got plenty to watch this weekend. I'm just going to stay in. So let me know what your favorite movie that's a little bit under the radar that I should check out. The next way to clear up some cap space is, the third way and final way is trades. This is kind of like roster cuts where it's a little bit more simplistic, but it's not as common because it takes two to tango. And the Browns did this last year with the Broncos, where they took on Jerry Jeudy's salary to help the Broncos cap situation. My trade candidate is Greg Newsome. He's got his fully guaranteed fifth-year option. It's $13.3 million. I don't think Newsome is coming back. And I think the Browns are going to try and trade Newsome. Probably not get a very good draft pick out of it because what they really want more than a draft pick is $13.3 million off their salary books. That to them might be worth a fourth-round draft pick, right? Getting that cap relief, which is why the Browns traded just a fifth and a sixth for Jerry Jeudy, which looked like a steal, and it kind of is a steal, but they also took on his fully guaranteed option, and all of a sudden that money transferred from Denver's books to Cleveland's books. But Newsome, 4 years so far with Cleveland. Here's my take on Greg Newsome. You guys can look at his stats over his 4 years in Cleveland, and last year was a very bad season for Newsome in coverage. He let up 491 yards in coverage. That is a career high for him. And keep in mind, he only played 13 games. 4 touchdowns allowed. Also a career high. Also only played for 13 games. That's right. So here's my take on Greg Newsome. I think what happened to Newsome, and I'm a bit of a perpetuator of this and guilty of this, people use Newsome in trade talks 2 off seasons ago to try and get Jerry Jeudy. And when you talk about trading a player, you start to diminish their value a little bit to rationalize why you want to trade them. Because everyone wanted to go get a fun, sexy wide receiver and didn't want to hold on to another DB, which just doesn't quite put, butts in seats as much. So in the process of Newsome coming up over and over and over again in trades, I think people started to talk themselves into, yeah, he's not that great of a corner. We should trade him. Because he kept being used as trade bait. When in reality, his first 3 years, he was a solid starting corner in the NFL. I think he might have been able to start for nearly all 32 teams at some spot, inside or outside. But because everyone wanted to try and trade for Jerry Jeudy and a bunch of other players back then, who's a good player to offer up and trade? Greg Newsome. And then over the course of time, we just watered down Newsome's value. Now, don't get me wrong. In 2024, he was a bad corner. But in 2022, 2023, he was a quality starting corner, which for picking 26 overall is not that bad. So if we go back to the trade idea that I want to talk about here, I could see the Browns maybe striking a deal with the Vikings. Minnesota has 3 corners all headed to free agency. And in this case here, they're barely giving up any draft picks. It's a 5th and a 6th round pick swap. So they just move back 1 round. They do take on his $13.3 million, but they've got the cap space to do it. They've got J.J. McCarthy on his rookie deal. We'll see what they do with Sam Darnold. So financially, they can get it done, and they might go, well, if the biggest con here is $13.3 million, yeah, let's fall back from round 5 to round 6 for a former first-round draft pick. So here are all the moves I talked about on today's episode. You got the 2 post-June 1 cuts, Joe Bitonio, which again, this money right here, like $20-ish million, does not hit your books until after June 1st. But a Watson restructure and a Greg Newsome trade, you do those two things right there, and you are in the green. So add it all up, and it's a nice $69.4 million. One quick thing before we pick a card. I saw this shirt over on Fanatics. It's going for, I think, a really good deal, 25% off. So go to chatsports.com/CLE sale. I put that link in the comments and description of today's video. I think it's an awesome piece of Browns gear to add to your wardrobe as it begins to warm up, hopefully soon. And that way you've got a nice, fresh new t-shirt, because there's nothing better than walking around and someone going, that new shirt? Like, yeah, it actually is. Thank you for noticing. Let's pick a card to get you guys on your way with the rest of the weekend. Mr. Barkus, which card do you want to go with?
Let's go with, I was going to say 9 of spades, so I'm going with ace of diamonds.
I'm going to say not 10 of clubs, but 6 of clubs. Math, baby. No. 10 of hearts, though. 10 of hearts. That will do it for us on today's episode. Thank you guys for watching. I'll catch up with you all later.